And another episode of Chop It Up. Today, I happen to be privileged enough to join my friends Michelle and JR here. Barry, sad as it is, won't be with us today because he's lecturing, for lack of a better word, with a class of rookie law enforcement officers. He's been given the opportunity to share his perspective with some guys that are new to the force, hopefully to improve social relations between the cops and convicted felons and other people. And that's what he's up to today. And I'm lucky enough to be here with Michelle and JR. Something I would like to talk about is crime and punishment. I would like to talk about proportionality in crimes and the correlation to the proportionality of sentencing. Because in Florida, it's kind of out of whack. For the most part, I think that some of the laws that are in effect today were, to paraphrase Clay Travis on Fox Sports Radio, fear porn, because there was a time that people were convinced that a new brand of criminal were going to come onto the scene called the super predator. That's right. The super predator. And they cast these laws from anxiety and from a position of anticipation. And the super predators never really showed up. You know, they
say the super predators never showed up because we incarcerated them all.
Right.
Well, the super predator was really the crack addict.
No.
It was the minors. The minors were going to be ripping and running with the gangs and all that other stuff. It was the juveniles that were the super predators to be.
Here's what it was. What the anticipation was, that parents who were addicted to drugs, that there would be developmental defects in the children, compounded by the lack of family unit and structure, because the parents are drug addicts, so they're not going to be there to instill any kind of cultural balance with the children, that the children were going to grow up to be immoral, violent,
joining the gangs.
Well, I mean, I wasn't being facetious sarcastic when I said that, because if you go back to the New York area in the era of the crack epidemic,
right?
A lot of these laws were not only, they were anticipating this, but they also was very reactive to what the situation was going. For example, in Florida, one of those laws was the 10-20 life,
right?
Because of the gun. But, right, and they figure. But think about it: a person going to your original point. I can't hear you.
It was 99.
I can hear him.
99 what?
I think it was 1999 when 20 Life came out.
Who?
The 10-20 Life. Hold on, let me check.
I know, so when I was in high school, which was the 90s, I took a sociology class at the college, and I was always very interested in things like teenage pregnancy and stuff like that. So of course, juvenile offenders, things like that also came up when I was doing that sort of stuff. And so that's when they were talking about super predators. They were talking about the end of the world for teenagers, all this other stuff, that we were just growing up all crazy and reckless and going to kill everybody and just pop out babies everywhere.
Well, because remember that bill, the crime bill by, Mr. Joe, Joe Biden, that was 1994.
As of 1998, the year before the law went into effect, so it was in 1999, guns were used in 31,643 violent felonies in Florida. There you go. At the time, mandatory sentence for using a gun was 3 years. So,
what was annoying was that this was the whole changes that was going on with this was fueled by flawed research.
Right. Exactly.
That's what the issue was. It was all flawed research where they were doing all these suppositions about what was going to happen with these juveniles. Instead of, looking at it objectively, they cater to the fear. They look for the research that reinforced the fear. And that's what was presented to justify these types of laws and interventions.
It was worse than flawed research. It was subjective data.
Yep.
But the point that I brought that law up was for that reason about the proportionality of sentencing versus the actual crime. Because before that, in Florida and most states, they gave the judge a lot of latitude to use discretion.
That's right.
And every state, and this is not to make it political, but it is political, each state that had a governor or it was a Republican-led legislative body at the time they enacted these laws, took away a lot of the discretion.
Right. But see,
and that's where they confused the issue about the time and the crime.
Right. But see, this is what I was getting at. I was working towards the 1020 life as well as a few other things, because the biggest problem I have is the mandatory life sentence in the 1020 life. Because if a natural sentence is an alternative to the death penalty in a homicide case, which is supposed to be one of the worst crimes, and it is, and if a natural life sentence is the mandatory punishment for sexually abusing a child under 12, which is a very terrible crime, and it is, then proportionality. However, I know guys that are in prison for shooting someone in the arm because it's considered attempted murder. And that's bad. Violent crimes are bad. I get that. I also know guys that are in prison for a couple ounces of cocaine with life sentences. I know guys that are in prison for life sentences for selling rocks to an undercover cop 4 and 5 times. Well, you cannot convince me that a guy out on the street selling crack, either to support his habit or make some money, while it is a crime, you cannot convince me that proportionally, that it is proportionate to a homicide. There's no
right.
There's no,
and especially too, like the career criminal or the 3 strikes and you're out.
I wouldn't care if he sold crack 5 times. It's never going to add up to killing somebody, and it should never add up that way in a sentence. That no one is sentenced to die in prison for something like selling crack.
And like I said, California is a prime example. They've had people with the 3 strikes stealing a pizza, stealing some golf clubs.
But listen, I get it when there's a victim involved. I mean, look, this is how it is. This is the way it was explained to me, and this is the way it makes sense. When you look at a crime and you look at the punishment, it has to be proportionate.
Yeah.
If you steal a little bit of money from someone, well, you go to prison for a little bit of time because that gives you time to think about the little bit of shit you did, and it gives them time to recover from you stealing a little bit of money. You steal more money, you go to prison for more time because it takes them longer to get it back. You know what I'm saying? And the
thing is I appreciate you bringing up California, but Florida is huge in just giving out life sentences. They love to give out life sentences. It's like the Oprah show, but with life sentences. You get a life sentence. You get a life sentence. You get a life. That's Florida. It's crazy the amount of people I see with life sentences.
Everybody here has a life sentence up under their chair.
Yeah. It's like, and I've seen it. Like, I've had people walk in my office and go, I can't cope with the idea that I didn't kill anybody and I'm sitting here with a life sentence.
Right. And listen, I've seen it. And look, as far as violent crimes go, when there's a victim, the scale goes from assault to battery. Well, assault and then battery, then aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, attempted murder, and then several degrees of homicide. And the sentencing should be proportionate. I get it. The 1020 life is a completely disproportionate way of sentencing people.
Yep.
Because if you shoot into a crowd, and look, okay, I get it. Let's just say shooting anybody is wrong. Cool, I got it. That doesn't change the fact that when you're out there involved in other things, drugs bring money, money bring the threat of robbery and violence. And if you're out there selling drugs, you're going to have a gun. I mean, that's just it. It comes with the territory. My bad. But then things spin out of control. And if you don't kill someone, I really believe you should never have a life sentence. And especially for victimless crimes, especially for that. You know, I don't give a damn about the Prison Reoffender Act. I don't give a damn about the
I hate that thing. I hate the prison re.
Never be a life sentence if there's not a dead body attached or a child has been violated. That's
Agreed.
What do you think, JR?
Well, like I said, I wanted to get more into detail, but yeah, at the end of the day, that's what it does matter, because I said I've looked at all these states, and they all have some crazy things about the amount of time you get. Because certain places I look in the news and say, if they were in Florida, they have a life sentence, and they only get like 5 or 10 years.
Yeah. I see that too. And I'm like, man, thank goodness they committed that crime in this state, not in Florida.
But I know guys that are in prison. And for everybody watching, I am about to begin a mini series on my channel, Listless Genius TV, where I'm going to start highlighting and focusing on some guys that I know who are serving life sentences without parole for victimless crimes, drug crimes, and stuff like that. And you're going to be, some of you are going to be surprised. Some of you are going to be amazed. Some of you may even be appalled, but it's terrible. It's a terrible situation. And I'm going to do what I can to bring it to light. Yes, Michelle.
I have to dip out. I have an appointment at 1. I apologize for my late arrival. I apologize for my early leaving. Blame my landlord.
That fucking landlord.
I'm telling you.
Yep. Well, for those of you who enjoyed this brief session of Chop It Up, you know, press share, like, leave us a comment, and subscribe.
And it's good to see you, JR.
Hey, it's nice to see you, Michelle. Oh,
He's like a ghost in the machine.
Bye-bye. See you later.
All right.
See you later.